Welcome to today's On This Day in Tudor History with me, Claire Ridgway, author of On This Day in Tudor History. Now, where am I taking you back today? Well, I'm taking you back to the reign of King Henry VIII and an event that actually happened in Rome. But it was a person, they're not a Tudor person as such, but they were someone that did have an impact on Tudor history, an impact on the reign of King Henry VIII, for example. For on this day in Tudor history, the 25th of September 1534, Pope Clement VII, who was born Giulio di Giuliano de' Medici, so one of the Medici family, died in Rome. Now, Clement had been Pope since he was elected in 1523, having served as chief advisor to the two previous popes, his cousin Pope Leo X and also Pope Adrian VI. Pope Clement VII was Pope at rather an interesting time. The Protestant Reformation sparked by Martin Luther was spreading through Europe. Henry VIII was, of course, seeking an annulment of his marriage to Catherine of Aragon. Emperor Charles V and Francis I of France both wanted the Pope's support on their very different sides. Suleiman the Magnificent was causing trouble in Eastern Europe, and the Catholic Church was suffering with financial problems. Then, in 1527, there was the sack of Rome. This was a massacre and pillage carried out by the mutinous troops of Charles V, Holy Roman Emperor, and those associated with Cardinal Pompeo Colonna, an enemy of Clement. Pope Clement VII ended up being captured and imprisoned at the Castel Sant'Angelo, and the Vatican ended up being plundered too. Clement stayed holed up in the castle for 7 months before escaping, allegedly, this is according to stories, dressed as a gardener. So that's the way he escaped his sort of imprisonment. Now, Pope Clement VII, as well as being a clergyman, was a scholar. He expanded the Vatican Library. He was friends with influential and humanist men like Erasmus. He was a patron of the arts. He commissioned Michelangelo to paint the scene which turned out to be the Last Judgment in the Sistine Chapel. As cardinal, he'd commissioned Raphael to paint the Transfiguration altarpiece for his cathedral at Narbonne in France. And he also ordered the restoration and refurbishment of churches and buildings in Rome. He was also a patron of science too. He personally approved Copernicus's theory that the Earth revolved around the sun. Clement was also a patron of Machiavelli, and interestingly, he opposed the Spanish Inquisition's treatment of the Jews. So he's a fascinating man, a very, very interesting pope, and a pope who, of course, was pope at a very interesting time. But his death is rather interesting too. It was rumoured that he died from eating death cap mushrooms or from fumes from poisoned candles placed in his room. But it's not known whether these rumours were based on any truth at all. In Diseases and Causes of Death Among Popes, Louis Cillier and F.P. Retief put his death down to natural causes, specifically a major anxiety neurosis. Whatever happened, Pope Clement VII was laid to rest in the Basilica of Santa Maria sopra Minerva in Rome. Now, when I read about interesting deaths, I'm a bit morbid and I like to dig deeper into things. So I actually looked up death cap mushroom poisoning, and I found out that 90% of deaths related to mushroom poisoning worldwide are due to death cap mushrooms, and that these mushrooms can easily be mistaken for edible mushrooms, and you don't notice when you're eating them because they're said to be very tasty too. As little as 1/2 to 1 death cap mushroom contains enough toxin to kill an adult, and symptoms take some time to manifest. 6 to 24 hours after eating. So you don't even find out that you've eaten something that was a bit dodgy for some time. So there's a delay in getting medical treatment often too. Symptoms of death cap mushroom poisoning include abdominal pain, diarrhea, nausea, vomiting, all things that, you think, oh, I might have eaten something dodgy. But then later it turns more serious and there's jaundice, delirium, seizures, coma, kidney failure, intracranial pressure and bleeding, and cardiac arrest. Death tends to happen between 6 and 16 days after eating the mushroom. Nasty, an awful way to go. So we don't know whether Pope Clement VII died after eating a death cap mushroom, whether he was poisoned by candle fumes, or whether he had some kind of anxiety neurosis or whatever. But we know that on this day in history, the 25th of September 1534, Pope Clement VII died of something. Perhaps mushroom poisoning. It does make his life even more interesting for there to be that legend about him. Thank you for joining me. I will be back tomorrow with another Tudor history event. Of course, every day something bad happens. I sometimes bring you something jolly, but the period's full of executions and nasty deaths, I'm afraid. You can subscribe to the channel by clicking round about there. You can hit the bell to be notified as videos go live, and you can, of course, give this video a like as well. Thank you for joining me. See you tomorrow. Bye.